Hey, everybody, welcome to the Approved Perspective podcast powered by Approved Social. Hey, Mickey, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Excited to have you. You know, it's fun because I see that digital marketer. Is that the digital marketer logo in the background?
It is.
There we go. Certified digital marketer. I love it. I think that's how we originally connected was through that. And I was considering at the time joining and still am. Haven't quite made the plunge yet to do it, but it's it's such a great group of people, everyone that I've met. So let's talk a little bit about you, Mickey, because this is such a fun interview. I'm excited for it. You are a very experienced marketer. You do a cool program called the 90 day. Let's see, it's called, I have it here, the 90-day campaign. Is that right?
You got it. 90-day campaigns.
The 90-day campaign. And you're known as the marketing closer. So I think that's fun stuff that we're going to get into today on what does the 90-day campaign look like? Because a lot of folks go, I either need a campaign immediately, I need something that's going to make me money today, or they go, okay, well, I don't know how to create a system or a process or build out exactly what I need to be doing in 90 days. It's sort of this, let's just see what sticks kind of mindset. And I'm hopeful and I'm interested to find out, like, what does that look like for you when you're talking about the 90 day? Could you just give us like a little introduction of what that looks like and how that is? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So most people see a campaign as like a one-time thing. I need money, better throw together a campaign of some kind. And we do it infrequently. We do it way too fast without enough planning. And ultimately, it just leads to a ton of issues. So what we do is we've built a system where every quarter you have a campaign. And so it's just part of your quarterly marketing plan because when you consistently promote your products and services, you consistently sell them. If you inconsistently do it, you're going to see obviously a drop in sales. So the 90-day campaigns is just a really simple way where every 90 days we're running a promotion, a launch, a campaign, a dedicated time for selling
Yeah.
at least every 90 days because most people will just throw together a sale and then they go back into nurture mode.
Mm, interesting.
Whereas with enough planning and strategy, you can move people through that funnel very efficiently and very quickly by giving them what they need in sequence instead
Right.
of going from nurture to sale with a big jump.
Gotcha. So you're talking sort of like just making sure that you have processes in place where it's not just this like revenue roller coaster experience that you're on where I mean as an agency owner starting out early, like I remember very clearly the revenue roller coaster. It goes from I'm on my own and my wife was working another job at the time to help us kickstart this agency, and I'm out selling, 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 selling. That's literally all I was doing at first. Then you get a client and you go, okay, cool. Now, since I'm the only one doing this, I've got to stop selling all my manual selling that I was doing. Literally, I was literally at the day where no phone books, but I was basically finding resources, finding lists of people, plumbing companies, roofers. I was trying everything. You make that sale, and then at that point you go, okay, well now I have to fulfill what I've just promised to this person. So you take a break from the sales, thinking that maybe some of those deals that you called earlier could close, but they don't because you're not nurturing them, you're not following up on them even really at all. And then you get into this, okay, well, now maybe that client doesn't last for forever. Maybe you do a great job and they leave you because they want to do their own marketing. Maybe you do a terrible job and you're figuring out stuff and you're learning and growing. But whatever the case might be, you sort of get stuck on that hamster wheel. And so with y'all's model, I'm assuming there's sort of a good blend of, hey, let's be selling and nurturing at the same time. Like that's why you're saying let's do it every 90 days.
Yeah, so we look at it very kind of from an old school perspective of the stages of customer awareness. This is where kind of the whole idea came from. So we're taking a customer from unaware all the way to most aware. They know your offer, they just need a reason to buy. But there's a lot of stuff that happens in between there that
Yeah.
most people skip. And so the goal of your campaign over the course of this 90 days is to help take customers through each of those stages of awareness with your content. And ideally, you want to do it in a way that's not super manual, so you're not constantly having to create.
Mm,
So we actually start with evergreen content. And we create a piece of content on your website for each of those stages of customer awareness. And then you can pull from and repurpose and reuse over and over and over again for your social media, for your emails. But even if you stop on social or email for a period of time, everything the customer needs to go through those stages is on your website. So
Mm,
you still got the whole funnel covered in terms of content. And that takes a lot of weight off of most people's shoulders once that's there.
right. And then repurposing that content is a huge, I'm assuming a huge piece for you. So let's talk,
Absolutely.
because I want to get into like what that looks like specifically, but I want to hear sort of to the story about how you got to this point. How did you even start the 90-day campaign process? And like, what is that? Like, how did you get into this to begin with?
It's actually kind of a ridiculous story. So I was a white label copywriter.
Oh,
And so
cool.
I worked for a bunch of different agencies and I
Right.
got pulled in for different stuff. And my specialty is bottom of funnel. So that's why I'm the marketing closer is that
Yeah.
that bottom of funnel stuff. I'm a conversion copywriter. So I'd get pulled in,
Can I
but
just
I'd
say that,
notice
like,
holes.
real
Yeah.
quick? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but copywriting is very difficult for me. I'm not a great copywriter, but I will say that I don't know what the percentage is, but it's probably greater than 50, 60, 70% of the sales that I've made for people or for myself is all from good copy. I mean, good imagery, good video, those are no brainers. We get that. But without the copy, without the script, without the headlines, the descriptions, the link to script, all this stuff, like that has to be dialed in perfectly. So to know that you started there, you started this other business, I think people, if they're looking at you as a potential to use or to see as somebody who's a success story, like that's a great place to start. Get really good at the copy that you're creating. And man, there's probably a lot that you could unpack and teach us there too.
It was a lot of fun. I mean, I was very fortunate. I got to work with some amazing agencies and strategists and copywriters and creatives. But what I found was everyone focused so much on these little chunks. And there was so much opportunity. And I'd get pulled in. We did a lot of events. And so events have this funny way of either you're bucketed into two places. You're an events company who scrambles and does everything last minute every year, regardless of how many times you say never again. It always is the same.
Yeah.
Or you start planning the day of the event for next year.
Yeah.
And obviously it's a much better experience as as a copywriter working
Yeah.
with the latter. But what I found was regardless of how much planning went into place or how little planning went into place, there were still key things missing. We went from unaware to sales, and that was it. We were
Right.
either like nurturing or we were assuming the person was going to buy, and that was it. And so I spent a lot of time trying to work in these different types of content into our
Mm.
campaigns. And I was trusted many times to run tests. And over the course of this, I started to learn more about the stages of customer awareness. And we played and we tried and tested a bunch of stuff. And over time, I started to develop this little framework that I used for many different agencies and companies.
Mm.
And then I was like, maybe I should try selling this myself. And that's where 90-day campaigns came from.
Very cool. Okay. Awesome. So you're able to take your experience working with other folks and then apply that to your business. I think when I've had conversations so far on the podcast, and as you know, this is season 1. Thank you for joining us for the podcast. I don't even know if I'm going to define it as season. It's really just going to be episodes. But early on in our podcast, we've had some really, really cool people. We've had Robin from Go High Level. We've had Bethany from SinSpark. We've had uh, PPC experts and SEO experts, and now copywriting and just lots of cool stuff. And I think one of the most interesting things that I've been able to glean out of this is that each person was able to leverage their experience before into the next thing. And I think what a lot of times we forget sort of, or we don't know how to maybe market or even think about the skills that we have, right? So one person might say, well, I don't have any skills to get into digital marketing. Okay, well, what did you do before this? Well, I mowed lawns. Okay, so maybe you could focus on lawn mowing services, right? You understand that business. So you don't have a whole lot to learn in the digital marketing world that's not online somewhere, that you can't leverage and put into your next business. For you, even better, because you did have that connection between copywriting and digital. But Okay, so getting back into the story of it, you started copywriting. Was this straight out of college, or was this kind of was
No, I've had many careers over the course of my life, and I think that's one of the the things that helped me out a lot was actually um, trying and testing on different hats and careers. I went to study as a paralegal. I studied counseling psychology, helps a ton in marketing. Let me tell you,
yeah,
that's probably the best. But so did being paralegal. I learned
yeah.
a lot about reading and diligently, and the logical side of the brain as well. But I tried on a lot of different hats, and then eventually I was lucky enough to start working for a fitness organization where my job was to grow their contractors' businesses inside.
Hmm.
So it was they had naturopaths and chiropractors and a bunch of different contractors inside this organization, and I had to help them find clients, and that was where I initially started and fell in love with marketing.
Very cool. I love it. Okay, great story and intro to that. So, we have a lot of people in our community that are digital marketing agencies, similar to what we would do. A lot of people who are internal marketing teams, people who are going to be thinking about this from a higher level strategy than even maybe just people getting started. There's going to be some people out there like that listening, but so if you were to look back and say, okay, along my journey of starting this business, what was a major like roadblock or hurdle that you experienced that you didn't expect that you thought wouldn't be there? Do you have something that might come to mind? I know that sharing these sort of roadblocks with the people who are listening can provide a lot of encouragement. I recently shared some information to my private socials about a health condition that my son's gone through and some other things. And um, sometimes we're private people. Sometimes sharing those things seems to help other people, right? Like even if it's not to help me and my situation, but someone else going, oh man, they're going through that right now too. Wow, that's encouraging to me to just know somebody else is going through pain. What did that anything come to mind?
Yeah, I think there's two things. One's minor and one's more major, I would say. So the minor thing, which now seems minor, but at the time felt major, was there's this huge focus for agencies and marketers to niche down. You need to dial in your niche. What's the you guys are in the US, so it's like the riches are
Yeah.
in the niches, is the saying. We say niche in Canada.
Yes.
But
I also
but
say niche.
oftentimes yeah, but oftentimes we think we have to choose a niche. It's our job, it's on us. But what I found was the niche finds you most of the time.
Mm,
You open yourself up, and those first few clients who are attracted to you, they're going to tell you a lot about where you should go and where you should lean in,
yeah.
what clients you like, what clients you don't like. So you don't necessarily have to jump in and know your niche right off the bat. It will find you eventually. You just have to be open and willing. That's
Mm,
it. And it's not always going to be what you think or some fancy, sexy, you know, whatever. It might just be the simple thing that you do really well and you connect with these people and rinse and repeat. Lean into it. You can always change later,
mm-hmm.
but that's kind of piece one is you're not going to know it all. Sometimes the answers will just find you.
Right.
But I think
That's
on the
good.
more kind of personal side, so my husband, we live kind of a crazy lifestyle. My husband's in the military. He's gone 300 days of the year often. And so I'm a single mom at home most of the time with my dog and my daughter. And it's chaos running an agency, being solo parent. And I think a lot of times we assume that everyone else has it figured out. So
Mm,
for me, I had a lot of challenge, a lot of struggle with comparing myself to others. Like, man, these people have just as much on their shoulders, just as much juggling, and they're doing great. Why am I not doing so well? Why am I struggling? But what I found was the highlight reels are not always the truth.
mm,
And
yeah.
what you'll recognize is everyone's got their own battles and everyone's struggling. It's finding people to help you through who can fill
Mm-hmm.
in those gaps. I don't have to do everything. I don't have to be the person on the calls doing the strategy, doing the copy anymore. And it's actually super freeing because now I have people who can help me as a team. We all come together and fill in those gaps.
Right. Right. No, I love that. I mean, I think that's a great one. It can feel like in the moment that you need to go out and find the solution to, um, who your niche is or your vertical or whatever you want to call it. But getting started and just working through the first few clients that you get will really direct you, and it shows you too what are you good at. I think that's one point I would maybe say is like, and maybe I'd like to hear if you agree with this or not, but when I first got our first few clients, you go, okay, this client, man, I am not so great at doing it. Maybe I'm performing well for them. They're performing, campaigns are going well, everything's good. But me personally, I don't enjoy it. And what I have found is that I need to hire people to do the campaigns and the things that I'm not good at as a business owner, CEO. I need to offshore those, not offshore, maybe offshore if you want to offshore, but offload those from me and my shoulders to someone else who's good at that specific thing, who actually enjoys that thing, like copywriting, for example. I have a copywriter who's excellent at what she does. I don't do it well. It takes me lots of time and energy. If I were to be forced to do that, my business would slow down. I would not provide as much value to my clients. And at the end of the day, I would burn out more quickly. Right. And so that's a great one for people who are just getting started, or people who are even just sort of reevaluating what they're doing right now. Think about what you're really good at, lean into those things that you're good at, and you'll sort of naturally progress into, okay, my clientele are roofers, or my clientele are, you know, estheticians, or whatever you want to, go for. You have sort of more of a direction there. That's cool. Awesome. Okay. So, and you said your husband is in the military and you guys are in Canada, correct?
Yes.
Very cool. Well, I'm sorry that he's away so long. That sucks.
Well, he's home right now, so I'm
Okay,
counting my
cool.
blessings at the moment. It's
Awesome.
really
Well,
nice.
I'm sorry to steal you away for a little bit. We'll make it short and impactful here. Um, okay, cool. Well, so tell us, when you're looking at this campaign, 90-day campaign, and I mean, I think in general it's just a great strategy, but what are you looking at specifically when you're evaluating a new client? So you're talking about somebody in the verticals that we're just talking about, maybe. Um, what are your niches, by the way?
Yeah, so we work in B2B services.
Okay.
So for us, that's like corporate accounting, corporate law. We actually work with corporate cleaners. There's a bunch of different kind of, but it has to be a service and
Mm-hmm.
they've got to be talking B2B. Those are kind of our two big things, although we have gone outside of there if the situation is right. And I think this ties right into what you were saying. When you're evaluating a new client, it's not always the client that's the problem. Sometimes it's the client, sometimes it's the boundaries or it's the work itself. But you can make shifts to either. So we have had many great clients where it starts off wonderful and we're doing work we like, and then we test something with them, or they'll ask us to do something, we'll take it on and we'll be like, oh, immediate no, we need to get rid of this client. But that's not true. It just means we need to have a little check there and
Mm-hmm.
adjust the work so that we stay in kind of our zone. So for us, when we're evaluating a client, it's okay, do they align with our values and needs as a business? Like, are we a good character fit for them?
Mm-hmm.
And then, is this work that we're going to do really well for them? And is this somebody who's going to respect that this is what we do
Mm.
and be okay if we can't do something outsourcing to someone else? Because we're not the we'll do everything for you
Right.
agency at all. We're not going to build your website pages. We're not going to do any of that stuff.
Yeah.
We'll run your campaigns. That's it. And those partners who see us as that partner and are ready to respect those boundaries, typically we work really, really well together.
Right. That's a good one. I mean, we often, again, going back to starting out, you will take clients that you already have a gut feeling are not good fits. You'll take a client who says something in a conversation, who you can kind of begin to understand that they're going in a direction that they're going to ask you for too many things. They're going to do some scope creep to try to get you to do stuff for free for them. And if you're not careful, you might really actually be hindered by that well-paying client. I mean, maybe they pay you 4 or 5 grand a month or more, but they still are taking the amount of work as 2 or 3 clients because of how much they're demanding. And that could be, maybe you didn't set up sort of the scope of work and some of the very, very clear like distinction of, this is what we do, this is what we're going to deliver to you, and this is what you do, right? And in our contracts, we actually require people to respond to us in a certain amount of time, because what will happen is the client will give them something and then they are actually the biggest delay, but they don't see it that way, right? They see it as, why are these people not running my campaigns for me? Why are they not getting this website live for me? What does that look, whatever that looks like. And so,
Yeah.
having some of that distinction, I think is good in place too. Okay. So some of the, so you mentioned a few of those things. I think that's really great. When you're looking at people, are you looking also at where they're at as a business? Are they able to take on more leads? What are some of those characteristics that you're looking for?
Yeah, so for us, when I first started, I have a soft spot for like small business owners, right? As we all do. I think all of us have that like internal, I want to help somebody go from 0 to 1.
Right.
But those are the hardest clients in my experience. So we don't work with solopreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
If you're by yourself, sorry, not sorry, we're not a good
Yeah.
fit. It just typically doesn't work out for us. If you don't have a consistent solid budget, like that's an easy no-brainer for both
Mm-hmm.
of us, because for us, like there's a point, we call it a minimum viable campaign. If we can't give you what you need to get the results, then it's a waste of both of our times, and we're
Right.
both going to leave here feeling resentful. So that doesn't make sense. So we're very standardized. Like we've productized all of our services to a point where it's really easiest for us to know, is this going to work or not? Can
Mm-hmm.
we do what we need to or not? But I think, you mentioned something that kind of sparked a thought in my head, and I'm when it comes to client fit, sometimes for us, it's all about communication. And I think that's one of the benefits of the 90-day campaign is we have a reset every 90 days.
Mm.
So at the start, we sit down, we do a campaign brief, we walk through what the next 90 days are going to entail. This is our plan. And at the end, we sit down and review what happened, what went well, what didn't go well, what are we going to do moving forward, or are we going forward? And that natural break, like we don't do typical retainers for that reason, because we need to be able to adjust and pivot our services, manage scope creep or scope seep on our end
Mm-hmm.
if we are the ones pushing things that maybe don't fit, and being able to adjust and adapt. So I think that's one of the things you need to build in, those natural breaks and reviews, to have open communication with your client, and that will solve a lot of issues.
Yeah. So what do you do with that? Do you have like a weekly meeting with them, or what is that typically?
So for us, typically with clients, we don't do weekly meetings. We try and avoid meetings at all costs.
Yeah. Amen to that.
We're that agency where we're like,
Yeah.
no, if this can be done by email or like a Loom video, that's what we're going to do.
Oh
So
yeah.
typically we'll do monthly or even just quarterly, depending on the client and their needs. But we do like a walkthrough at the beginning of the campaign, typically with the team,
Mm-hmm.
and then at the end of the campaign. And we might have one big all hands meeting in the middle. But otherwise, we're just staying in good communication. We have one source of truth, which is that campaign brief that everyone gets. They know what's going on, they know the timeline, everyone has access to it, and you can see the status of the projects
Mm.
all in one place. So that solves a lot of issues for us and keeps us out of meetings.
Yeah, for sure. Meetings suck, man, and especially because you might be revisiting things that just don't need to be revisited. So I'm with you. If a client it needs those meetings, then I'm willing to do bi-weekly meetings. But for the most part, we don't need that because the agency's providing reports bi-weekly, and then we also do kind of an end of month report that's a more in-depth report on everything that went on, what performance you're getting, and what decisions we're making moving forward to do that. Sometimes that's requesting things from them, but a lot of times it's just reporting on what we're doing next.
Yeah.
And I find that if you're good at that and you're upfront with reaching your client in some way, whether it's a Loom video or a report or something, it sort of pushes them back a little bit. Not in the sense that I don't want to have that communication with them. Obviously, that's the best way to have that relationship and extend it. Um, but they don't need as much communication directly with you in a meeting if they're getting it in another way. And so, if you're an agency who's scaling, I think having someone who is on your team dedicated to creating reports and responding to those people, whether that's your account manager or yourself, some sort of a system in place where you're sort of providing a little bit of a barrier between, hey, let's just schedule a meeting to go over this versus here's all the information. We don't really need to schedule a meeting, right? And
Yeah.
even in those monthly reports, we'll say stuff like, if you would like to request a meeting to go over this in more detail, please let us know, and 99% of the time they don't want one because they're getting what they need in there. So I think
Yeah,
that's,
we charge a lot for meetings. We tack on an additional fee for meetings because our time is valuable, and when we're not doing stuff, we're not doing stuff.
oh, I love
So
that.
that's one of the ways
Yeah.
that we talk to clients. Is like, we can absolutely do weekly meetings, but it's $350 per meeting. Do you want to
Wow,
tack that
that's
on to your,
awesome.
like, that's it. That's our deal breaker. That's why
Yeah,
budget's so
sure.
important for us.
You want it? Let's
Like,
do it.
That's it. But we keep them appraised if we notice something isn't going the way we think it should. If we see something, we keep them updated regularly so they feel like they're ahead, and that solves a lot of issues like that. Just that open upfront communication. We have client success managers who their job is literally just to keep the client in complete awareness of what's going on. So
Hmm.
if stuff does go bad, like they were aware that something happened right at the very beginning. It's not like, oh, by the way, this campaign didn't perform at the end of the month. It's like, hey, we noticed something. We told you about it. Here's what we did. We told you it was a test. Here's how it ended up.
Yeah.
Lesson learned. That's it.
Very cool. Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea to add. I mean, because if you have to get on, let's say you have to get a designer, a copywriter, or your account manager on as well, you're talking 3 or 4 people maybe from your team or more who are not working on the projects that are making you money and instead are working on a meeting with us. So if you are quick to schedule meetings, reconsider that. I mean, there's a reason that some of these huge people like you know, Bezos and others have very specific ways of their meetings. They're limited, short, usually to the point, and have a very specific reason. So be very cautious on that. And it also seems to really it it can be very easy for someone to just offer something to your client to make them happy. Maybe they like your client. I mean, I like my clients, so maybe you go, hey, you know what, we'll just make that little thing for you. Well, that little ad, or you know what, let's just, you need a graphic for this, that, and the other. Sure, we'll just make that for you or whatever. And so you start to see some of that scope creep, or just whatever you want to call it, to help out your clients. I have seen people who sort of make that almost their business model, where they have ability somehow to limit the amount of value that they provide and still continue to feel like they're just giving you stuff for free all the time. And I think that's through automations and other things that they've just found to be successful. When I'm looking at things, I'm trying to set this up, but when I'm looking at things like our product approved social, we've done a lot of research into what does it require to go out and get a new customer versus what does it require to keep a customer that you already have. And it's somewhere close to 70% more expensive to go out and get a new client than to retain a client. So if you were to invest 30, 40, 50% into your keep maintaining that client relationship by providing some sort of additional value or incentivizing, I have seen people do that very well. I don't tend to do that, or my agency hasn't tended to go with that model as much. But we're always providing value. We're always there to help them whenever they need help with pretty much anything or advice. Um, have you found? Do you see either of those two models much? And what do you think about those?
Client retention for us is everything. Our client, we love our clients and we want to keep them forever for the most part, but we know that we outgrow each other. It happens, or they'll bring us in just occasionally for a big promotion or something like that. So it, we know that there is a customer life cycle. We want to extend it as much as possible, and we try and steal from the best of the best who do this. And what we found was open and ongoing communication is one of the number one ways to maintain your client lifetime value.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so simple. Like regular emails, consistent check-ins, even if you have nothing to report, checking in and just saying,
Mm,
hey, we're working on this process right now. We just want to let you know we don't have anything available for you, but we're diligently working. Let us know if anything comes up. Those little pieces are huge. But the one thing that we do for client retention is Loom videos.
yeah.
So
Okay.
instead of meetings, one of the things we do, we want to maintain the personal connection. We want them to feel like they know our people, not just via email. And so we actually record Loom videos for our clients. And we don't give away things for free to keep them. We do have a nice referral program. So if they bring us clients, we'll reward them and say thank you. But for the most part, it's like we genuinely take the time to reach out and make sure that you feel connected to us.
Mm-hmm.
And that has made a massive impact, especially when we stopped doing meetings. Like that was tough for some clients. They didn't like the idea of, oh, I used to get these meetings for free and now I have to pay for them. Like that stung. But at the same time, it was like, I don't think you recognize the skin in the game when we're spending all this time in meetings. Like we're holding you back and we
Yeah.
recognize that. So we need to set this up for success. And the Loom videos made a massive impact because they still got to hear our customer success managers or
Yeah.
whoever's working on the project and feel a part of the team, see a face and connect, even though they're not in a meeting. So that was big for us. We don't love giving away things for free per se, but we do love like rewarding our customers. So we will
Hmm.
celebrate with our customers if a campaign does really well.
Right.
And we'll sit down and really spend time and invest in the relationship if a campaign doesn't go well. Those simple things seem so underrated and kind of blasé, but they're everything for
Yeah.
us.
It's not avoiding those conversations. It's you have a tendency to say, okay, well, this campaign didn't go so well, so let's just avoid
Sweep it.
the conversation and move on to the next thing. Um, and if you just address it real quick and say, here's what we learned from this campaign. Didn't perform what we hoped, but that's okay. As we have discussed and laid out in our plan, we know that there's some testing that needs to happen. And if you've done a good job, I think, of explaining how it works, or if you have a client like you've talked about that already understands, they're already spending X number of dollars per month, they get sort of the up and down of, well, we're launching a new campaign or a new product, therefore it's going to take some testing and learning over the next few months to figure that out. Um, then I think you're setting yourself up for success there, because when you do have those conversations, it's not a bad thing. It's actually a learning of, well, here's what we learned. Blue images don't work or whatever, right? Like this thing that we found out is now going to help us make more money for you in the future because we're not going to use blue anymore. If that's the, whatever the example is. Or different CTA, or, we're using lead ads on Facebook instead of lead gen through your website or whatever. Um, Very cool. Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, so I really like that point. I really like that you charge people for meetings. I really like that you um, have a clear idea of like, how do we push those off? Like we talked about with reporting, you got the Loom thing, and that's probably similar. The coolest part about Loom, when I've done it some, and I haven't done it as much lately because I'm not in the agency as much day to day, but um, it's such a great way, because I think in between 5 and 10, maybe 15 minutes, probably 15, way max. You're probably going to be around 8, I think, is like a sweet spot for how long your video is going to be. If you were to jump on a conversation with someone and just pick up the phone and call that person, you're going to be 5 minutes in without even having said anything about what you're looking to talk about. With a Loom video, you go, hey, John, wanted to share what's going on with your campaigns today. Boom, and you're in the conversation without those interruptions that they're going to ask you. um, so I love that. I really love that. And one thing that I will add, as I started as an agency getting good at writing my emails to them, I actually started taking way more time writing an email. This is pre chat gpt, is it pre any help that like, and I'd already told you I'm not a good copywriter. So I would stop and I would go, let me read through this. Okay, you know what? Let me organize it. Let me add some bullet points. Let me add some clarity to this term that I don't think that they might remember we talked about it, but they might not understand it. And when I started doing that, damn, like I really started getting much better responses from people, much shorter emails back, much shorter questions, less requests for email for meetings. It was just a great way to, again, sort of provide that barrier to having those meetings with them all the time.
Yeah.
But
I think,
it did
oh,
require me to think about it a lot more and take a little more time in the email process. Some people who are great copywriters like you probably don't need to do that as much as I did, but um, if you're out there struggling, definitely consider taking a little more time. And I swear to God, like it probably reduced emails back and forth for people 50, 75%. It was massive. Versus me going, hey, campaigns are performing well. The CTR is great. The LTV is awesome. Blah, 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 blah. CPA is a little high. So we're going to work on that. This and that. Okay, guys, like you just had 17 million questions that you're going to get back from that email. You agree with that?
100%. For us, the first draft always sucks. And so we never draft an email and then send it. We draft an email and then we revise it at least twice before it gets sent. That's just like a company
Cool.
wide rule
Yeah.
because those little minor tweaks make a big difference. The other thing I will mention too is like we indoctrinate our clients really well. And that's something that a lot
Interesting.
of agencies don't do. They do a good job of nurturing and selling. And then once they get the client, they're like, deliverable, 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 go. And they don't take the time to truly educate the client, to set clear boundaries, to have good communication policies. Like we have a really strict revisions policy that people laugh at when they see, especially marketers. But it's so like we have an embedded video at the top about like the problem with decisions by committee. It's
Ah,
very entertaining. But then underneath, we have literally like a bullet point list of these are how revisions happen. These are our rules. One person's in charge. You can pass it through your team, but one person has to consolidate, yada,
wow.
yada. And like all of our policies are incredibly clear and they're written and
Mm.
they're policies
Mm-hmm.
because that word carries weight. So
Mm-hmm.
if you take the time to
What's
craft
our
these things
policy?
and
Sorry.
that's
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's our policy. Only one person is in control of revisions. You
I
can do
can't
what you
help it.
want
My
on
hands
your
are
end.
tied. It's our policy. I don't know what to do.
That's it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And especially when it's coming from a client success manager, that makes it feel a lot better if it's not me. They're like, well, you can change the policies. It's not me
Right.
sending the email.
Right.
But that indoctrination is everything. And it can set you up for so much better success, for less headaches and whatnot. So you really do have to take the time to think about, okay, what in my agency, what are the big problems that I'm having? Why are email chains 18 emails long? And how can I go in here and create a policy or a system that's going to reduce this
Yeah.
and work and test on it? And that made a big impact for us for sure.
That's huge. That's huge. It's fun that you mentioned that because I have experience hiring white label agencies for my agency in the past, and and I think it's a great strategy if you're out there starting or if you're looking to expand into a new vertical or a new offering. You don't have to be the best at that thing. You can hire someone who's the best. That's one way to do it. Very expensive way to get into it. Very commit. You got a lot of commitment there for that. Or you can try a white label service who's really good at PPC or SEO or whatever that might look like, and get some huge value out of that. And then determine: do I want to bring someone in house to grow this more? Do I want to continue with that white label service and just pay more and not really worry about it? What does that look like exactly? But I love that some of them, what I was trying to say, some of them have very clear revisions because when you're working with a white label, you're the middle person between the client and them. And if you're causing any kind of bound barriers by doing additional edits and other things, you're just slowing the whole process down. And so a lot of white label agencies have very clear processes like what you're talking about. And
I think that's one of the things I stole because I was white label for so long. And it
there you
was the
go.
agencies that had really good processes that I was like, I love working with you. And the ones that don't, man, they suck.
Yeah, we call it modeling. We don't call it stealing. We
I like
call it
that. I like that.
model.
R&D,
um,
rip off and duplicate.
yes, yes. Whenever someone says, "Hey, I want to be like Coca-Cola," I go, "Great. Let's look at what they're doing. And why are you trying to do these other things? Because that doesn't make sense. That's not what they did, right? Let's model after someone who knows what they're doing and has actually been in that. So, okay, two things. First, I'd love to find out what's a big success client look like for you. And then I'd also like to find out, I don't know specifically, I know you're a copywriter by trade initially and other things, but what is like the focus that you have on what you do? Like you write, I know you talk about writing content for their website, you create ads. What other things are you sort of creating for these people?
Yeah, so for success for us, like we sit down with our clients at the very beginning of any campaign and define what are our objectives and then how are we going to measure success. Whether we meet those targets, it's very clear. Like that's what success looks like. And we don't just stick with the traditional, okay, this is how much money you want to make, this is how many sales you want, etc. We have those. But there's also some intangible things that clients often want out of a campaign, and it's important to understand what those are and to measure those as well. And that's going to differ every campaign.
Mm,
But like for some clients, it's they feel that their brand reputation needs to improve.
mm-hmm.
And it's like, what does that mean to you? And you might think, oh, it's the number of reviews they have, but they might just think, oh, somebody told me they heard this, that, and the other thing about our brand. It's like, okay, that's not what I was thinking. I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad we had this conversation. So let's define what it means for you to feel better about your brand reputation. And then how are we going to measure it through this campaign? That conversation can mean so much to your clients. Like just taking the time to understand beyond the numbers what
Mm-hmm.
it is they're trying to do or accomplish or experience,
Mm.
and helping them see what success looks like and then map that out in your campaign. So that's part one. It's really simple for us. Usually it's revenue.
Yeah.
That's
Most people are gonna,
typically what
yeah,
we're looking
yeah.
at when it comes to success for a campaign. It's like, what is the revenue target? What are we selling and how much do we need to sell? Did we meet that target? Great. So that's that's part one. But for us, so we focus on content. We prioritize evergreen content, but we also do a lot of content repurposing. So we do website, blog articles, or website content. We do social media, email, video, and then paid. And we combine it all over the course of that 90 days. So it all works together. A lot of people will throw up an SEO plan and then create some blogs. And then they'll have separately some emails. And then they'll have some social media. And then they'll have a lead form somewhere. And none of it's working together. And it's just all kind of all over the place. So being able to map out how all of these things are going to work together can help a ton. And that's essentially what we do. We take all of those pieces and connect the dots. So it's all working towards something together.
Very cool. Okay, so content heavy, but you did say you make videos and other things. So there's parts of that, but you're starting off with the content as the foundation and then using that and reusing that in different places and connecting the dots there. So would that look sort of like, let's say, so you write some content for them that you know that they're weak on for their SEO, and then maybe you take a summary of that and send it in an email and kind of point them back to that blog?
I'll walk you through it.
Yeah.
It.
Okay.
So what we do is we start off with whatever their pillar content type is. So it might be a podcast, right? If that's where they're doing their creative, it might be a blog, it might be whatever.
Right.
We'll go with blog because it's the easiest one to explain. But what we do is we look at those stages of customer awareness that we have to work the customer through. We're going to create a blog post for each, and we're going to optimize for SEO as best we can. But we have to remember that like SEO is fantastic, but over time we're going to be able to improve that by creating better and more content. It's not just a one and done thing. So we don't worry too much. We don't put SEO before the content. We put the content and then optimize with SEO. That's our kind of path. So we start with those blog posts, 6 to 7 blog posts maybe, or of course you could do more, but that would be the baseline. Then from that, we look at, okay, what are the key things these blog posts are working on? And then how do we create an email sequence that walks through those using the blog posts? So it's not necessarily a summary. It could be a key takeaway. It could be a summary. It could be a checklist that we created from the blog post. We're just repurposing the content in different ways, understanding that the blog post was created to give the customer some sort of information and feeling or experience to move them to the next step. And then from that, we'll also create a bunch of social content. So we might pull quotes, we might pull stats, we might pull transformational stories or testimonials, and we'll kind of just repurpose and come up with that overarching plan. So we're taking the blog as the pillar and then splintering it into a bunch of pieces to create the emails and the social media posts and the paid ads. And all of that works through in sequence.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people don't do a good job of repurposing content. And that means that you're making stuff all the time, guys. You're making everything new every single time. And some people will pull little pieces here and there, but I think being able to say, start with the big stuff and then utilize that for sort of the littler things is a great way to do it, versus I'm going to go make a bunch of social posts and then I'm going to try to take those little posts and make them into larger text or email threads or trips or whatever. Just do it the opposite way. And again, it starts with content. It starts with writing the stuff down, getting it a good understanding of it, and then you sort of understand what do I need to break? How do I break this down now? I mean, it's like in this conversation today, we've had a lot of really cool stuff that we can now break down into smaller clips and share with people. And I hope that we can share those, and it might be even more impactful in some ways than this whole podcast. Not saying you shouldn't listen to it, but I'm saying that it's a very good way. And then at that point, I also have people pointing them back to the podcast and to other things to say, hey, take a listen.
It's just remembering the purpose behind all of it.
Yeah.
And I think the benefit of doing it in this framework is once you've done those kind of pillar pieces, you don't have to keep recreating new pillar pieces if you don't want to. Like, you don't have to. You can repurpose the same pillar pieces and splinter them in different ways, or what worked, what didn't work, and then rinse and repeat, because you're going to have new customers coming through, new prospects coming through that pipeline, right? So new people are going to see your stuff. You can repurpose your stuff time and time again, and nobody's going to get sick of it. They're just going to remember it.
Right. Right. I was talking to Bethany from SynSpark. If you haven't taken a look at SynSpark, you should. It's pretty cool. And we're talking about how um, with AI and some of the tools that are out there, it can feel as a marketer like you're being less personal with someone. In reality, you're actually trying to be more personal. Yes, maybe you're able to reach more people with using that AI tool or using that thing, but you're not creating an AI tool and not using their first name tags and not using their business tag and not using these things in there. So if you do it the right way, that person is getting a more personalized approach and outreach to them. And I think the same thing can happen when you're looking at the opposite like this, when you're creating content. It's like you're able to utilize this content for so much more and be more personalized with it by starting off with a larger amount of content to sort of work from.
Yeah,
Uh,
instead of prioritizing the tech first or the platform first approach, it's a customer first approach. I'm not writing about a topic.
mm-hmm,
I'm writing for a person,
mm-hmm, yeah,
right? I'm not creating a campaign about a product. I'm creating a campaign for this person. And so when
right.
you prioritize the person, whether you're using AI or not, it's going to turn out better.
Here's this pain point that we're solving, and like that written out in a story form can then be used, and you can pull that in hook story offer if you want to follow Russell Brunson or one of these other models that is just a great way to provide that value. Well, very cool. Well, so Mickey, we've talked for a little while now. It's been 48 minutes. It's been fun. Do you have something on your heart and mind that you want to share with folks who are in the same world who um, you might have that's good information for them going into the holiday season?
One of the biggest, most important things that I think I did for myself and for my business, both personally and professionally, was I kind of curated this little personal board of directors.
Hmm.
And I think everyone needs one. And it's not always people in your industry, but sometimes it is. But you'll have a handful of people who you go to for decision making for those big moments in your life. When you find those people, get together with them regularly,
Mm-hmm.
curate your little board and leverage them. Ask them the questions, get creative ideas from them, and really leverage that network, because when you don't, it can feel really isolating,
Mm.
right? Especially when you're by yourself running an agency. That's tough. So
Mm-hmm.
curate those people and leverage them regularly, meet with them, build your own kind of private mastermind, and you'll be amazed at the progress you'll make so much faster.
Huge. That's huge. I have found that to be the case for sure. And I'm working on that actually. As I've started doing this podcast for Approved Social, I kick myself constantly that I didn't do it for my agency 5 years ago and start 5 years ago. Because what I'm finding is I'm having conversations with really cool people who are fucking awesome and good at what they do. And um, encourage me in a lot of ways and also validate some of the things that also destroy some of the things that I thought were good, right? Like so many cool things happen. It's just been a great way to do it. So I have actually been doing the same thing, building out sort of that network, but then also specifically from that network saying, okay, this person is man, this person's amazing. I would love to learn and be mentored and grow and just ask them questions every once in a while. And what is amazing is people want to do that, right? Like if someone was out there listening, I'm sure, and they go, man, I'd love to talk to Mickey about X, Y, and Z. Like I guarantee I can tell you're that type of person who's going to go, sure, I'll talk to you. Like, like let's talk. If you need some help, let me give you some advice. That's why you're on this podcast. And
I
I think
literally built a website for that.
you did.
I built out askmickey.com so anyone could
No
ask me
way.
questions.
Let's go to askmickey.com, people. Askmickey.com.
Mickey like the mouse, askmickey.com. And you
Okay.
can
Very
submit your
cool.
questions
Pick my
and
brain for free,
pick.
guys. This
That's
is
it.
so cool. I love this. Um, Here's how it works. I'm here on the page. I'm just ask your question for free, and I create content that answers your questions and share it online. I freaking love that. It's a great thing. You get to answer the questions that people are asking. You get to then publish them and you maybe utilize them as content for yourself. and you're helping that person out. I love that. So go to askmickey.com, give it a try. I'm probably going to do it right here in just a second. So you'll get some random question just to see if he'll
Perfect.
share it. And Mickey, I really appreciate your time today. It's been so much fun. Thank you so much for coming by. And we look forward to hopefully having you again here soon.
Yeah, it was a blast. Thank you so much.